Movies like Full Metal Jacket and A Few Good Men involve characters who do not fit in with the Marine's mold. In Full Metal Jacket, this character is Private Pyle, and in A Few Good Men, it is Private Santiago. Private Pyle and Private Santiago are not as tough as their fellow soldiers. They are not as spirited as others. They cannot run as fast as others. In short, they are not as soldierly as others. So they are like nails that stick out, and their commanding officers react to that by trying to hammer them in. In other words, the commanding officers deal with the outcast soldiers' failure to conform by stamping them into the soldier mold. In both movies, the outcast soldier dies in a dramatic way while being stamped into the mold by their officer, and actually by their fellow soldiers too. In Few Good Men, the outcast soldier gets accidentally killed during a hazing episode by fellow soldiers. In Full Metal Jacket, the outcast soldier kills himself after suffering a mental breakdown caused by hazing by fellow soldiers. These movies are dramatizations of true events that occurred in the military. But similar situations can be observed in our world too. A person who does not seem to fit in, who does not outwardly conform, who does not seem to comply with other people's expectations from them, is subject to their judgment, sometimes subtly, in the form of dirty looks, tuts, eye rolls, scandalized whispers and snickers, and sometimes overtly, in the form of criticism, hurtful remarks, shaming, humiliation, etc. If a person is regularly seen and treated differently by other people, that takes a toll on the person, who is likely to start having social and emotional issues and substandard performance. If a student at school, if an adult at work. The field of psychology tries to resolve the consequent socio-emotional and performance issues by trying to answer the question, what's wrong with this person? Why cannot he or she conform? How can we make him or her conform? How can we make him or her do the things that he or she cannot do? So, the starting point for thinking about these issues is based on a conformity-based, weakness-based, deficiency-based, and a pathology-based narrative. The first questions to be answered are what is wrong with this person, and why cannot he or she conform to other people's expectations? These questions are addressed with a scientific and objective evaluation, which consists of a bundle of psychological tests. Even though these tests are basically surveys meant to measure subjective perceptions, they are treated as scientific and objective as medical tests, like a biopsy, where they take a piece of your body to see if you have cancer or not. The difference is that someone has a psychological evaluation when the existence of a problem, that is, a failure to conform, is practically no longer open to debate. So most of the time psychological tests are done to explain, or sometimes even to confirm the cause of the problem, in other words, to obtain a diagnosis. Because by that time people already have some strong opinions about what is causing the problem and what is wrong with the person. For example, if a student is referred for an evaluation because the teacher complains that he cannot focus in class as other students do, an ADHD diagnosis is very likely. Similarly, if a student is referred for an evaluation because he is very good at math but very bad at English, a learning disability diagnosis is very likely. In that sense, psychological evaluation can easily become a part of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Still, these diagnoses may help at times, because without these diagnoses, the problem can easily be attributed to the student's laziness, misbehavior, or maliciousness. Without the existence of a deficiency or a disorder, the approach to deal with the problem, that is, the student's lack of conformity, can descend into correcting a spoiled child, a bad child, or a difficult child by monitoring, punishing, and shaming the child. For example, a student with dyslexia, without an official diagnosis, may be treated as a child with a bad attitude toward studying. When a child is referred for a psychological evaluation because adults complain about him or her, the evaluation usually yields a diagnosis, and this diagnosis is treated as the all-embracing explanation of the problem, a single root cause underlying all the nonconformity issues the person is experiencing, the mother of all evil. So a psychological evaluation answers the first questions, what's wrong with this person? Why cannot he or she conform? But it does not really answer the next questions. How can we make the person or her conform? How can we make him or her do the things that he or she cannot do? after attributing all the problems to the person and establishing the person's disorder, deficiency, disability, or a pathology. A psychological evaluation that yields a diagnosis offers no remedy, no cure. Instead, the solution typically focuses on how to cope, how to manage the symptoms, how to mask. In that sense, no cure or substantial change or improvement is possible. You are condemned to live with your deficiency or disorder for the rest of your life. Still, you need a diagnosis to be eligible for the benefits associated with your deficiency. Prescribed medications, accommodations, job modifications for employees, academic modifications for students, etc. For example, without an ADHD diagnosis, a student cannot get an ADHD medication and cannot get common test-taking accommodations like extended time to complete the test and quiet test-taking locations.